There's been a massive shakeup at Burberry. Hi!
I'm Garcia.
And I'm Telly.
And we are the HercastleGirls.
Hello!
If you like videos about fashion news, modest fashion styling, and lifestyle, this is the channel for you. Comment, like, and subscribe.
It's Fashion Month. Well, the ending of Fashion Month.
Right.
And we saw some beautiful, gorgeous things
Great
on the
shows.
runway. Beautiful shows. The creative directors came out. Their designs were on display. One of them being Burberry. Beautiful clothing. Gorgeous show. Check it out if you haven't already. Go and find Burberry's latest spring-summer collection. And Burberry, as beautiful as the show was, there was an interesting shakeup towards the end of the fashion show.
Right.
Riccardo Tisci, that was his last collection with Burberry. What you saw on the runway with Naomi Campbell and Bella Hadid and all these beautiful men and women just gracing the runway.
Yeah.
He came out, he took his bow, Kanye ran and took photos with the man, like, oh my gosh.
Said, bye. Burberry has had quite the year. First of all, for a lot of 2022, Burberry has been actually on the top 10 for brands that are doing really well.
Yeah.
Even though we haven't been seeing them do a lot social media wise, as far as influencers picking up their stuff and flexing Burberry online.
Yeah.
But Burberry was still doing it because, again, they were making sales. When it comes to fragrances, when it comes to
jewelry, accessories,
overall, they were killing it. So they were doing everything right. And then this show that Burberry put on was honestly one of my favorite shows. I'm gonna say it, favorite shows of the year. It was like a movie. First of all, just the presentation, the aesthetic, the way how they presented it, and then the actual pieces in the show. Fire, just pure fire going down the runway. And you could tell that people were just in love and people showed up to the show in their Burberry outfits. Like, it really was a beautiful sight overall. Even if you don't like fashion, you have to say, you know what, just watching that whole thing was a beauty. Why? Why would you put on the best show of your life?
Right, and then just say, yo, adios, amigos. And it's funny too, because I mean, online, a lot of people are praising Mr. Tisci. And forgive me if I say his name wrong constantly.
I think it's Tisci.
Tisci. Mr. T. Let's just call him Mr. T.
RT.
No, RT. Let's call him RT. Mr. RT. You know, people were praising that he was leaving. It's just interesting because a lot of people were saying, well, thank God he's free from this contract. So I don't know what was stirring, what was stewing and bubbling up at the headquarters of Burberry. No one's gonna really know the truth anyway. I mean, at least he went out with a bang because the show, like you were saying, was gorgeous and beautiful. But I think what's even more interesting, this is like the meat of what we're gonna get into, is who's replacing him. Burberry has decided to their new creative director, they're hiring full-fledged, benefits included. They're hiring Mr. Daniel Lee. Now, for those who are wondering, wait, who's Daniel Lee? Daniel Lee is another very talented fashion designer, just coming fresh off Bottega's final.
He's an English designer, unlike Riccardo, who is Italian.
Yeah, Daniel Lee has cut ties with Bottega.
Right.
Apparently since last year, he's cut ties. And now he is the new face of Burberry. And it's giving a bit of shake-up, you could say, in the fashion world. It's literally, it's like a 50-50. Half of the fashion people are like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be amazing. And half of the other fashion crowd is like, no, stop, red light, don't do this. I don't know what to make of it. I think for me, it's more so like, okay, can we just get someone new in general?
I'm not taking away from any designer's talents. Obviously, Daniel Lee is a talented guy.
Absolutely.
Riccardo Tisci RT, he is very talented as well. It takes a lot of work to come in as a creative director, especially for a house that's already established with an aesthetic, and continue to move that brand and continue to build it so it makes money. However, you know, this was me. I was like, yay, Daniel Lee, another designer that's overtly established that most fashion followers, fashion lovers know.
Right.
I don't know how I feel about it because Bottega, I don't know. I mean, I like the brand for the accessories.
Very cool brand.
I'm not the biggest fan of, you know, the overall aesthetic. You know what I mean? I'm not out here looking at that. I believe Burberry has such a strong aesthetic that it doesn't even actually need like a face for the creative director. You could literally have a bunch of designers design for this brand and it would still survive. But they're bringing Daniel Lee on, and okay, I mean, Burberry is an English brand. They're getting an English designer to take it on.
So you would think that it's a perfect pair?
Yeah, so I don't know how it will do, and I'm not gonna predict it either. He could do a great job.
He very well could.
I mean, that show that Riccardo put on, that was quite the show, but okay, you know, like, we'll give you a chance, Daniel Lee.
Right.
The concern here for me, and I think for many, is when are we gonna allow some new cats in the industry of fashion creative director roles? Yeah,
because as we've seen, Car, throughout fashion history, we all know that, you know, and anyone that thinks that fashion is not a business, it's a big old
it's a corporation.
Money-making business, baby.
It's a corporation just like tech, finance.
It's about money, y'all. At the end of the day, we all have to make money. Fashion houses have to make money, otherwise you don't get new goods. We understand why they took Daniel Lee. He did do wonders for Bottega. The handbags, you know, bringing things in to fashion that weren't really there before, the woven handbags and the keel. It skyrocketed. It was a big hit.
The accessories
that came out.
The accessories from Bottega, I'm sorry, they literally owned the last couple of years.
Definitely.
So Daniel Lee did it.
Daniel Lee did that. So the man does have a magic touch. The only problem is, like we were saying, there are so many students going to fashion schools, creating their own line, and if you see some of the work that these kids are putting out, it's just like jaw-dropping. Yet, the fashion houses and the investors, as much as they say, oh yeah, that kid is so talented, you know, I wonder if Donna Karen's available to design for our house and so on, but not so forth. You know, when you think back to the late and hella great Karl Lagerfeld, Cara and I, you know, we know this man has been non-stop working. He's designed for like 6 houses practically at one time.
Right.
How he did it, only God knows, but he did. Every brand has their own identity. Fendi has an identity different from Dior. Dior has a different identity from Chanel. So when you bring in one person to take care of all these different identities and the investors expect you to stick with this identity, don't mess it up with whoever else you're designing for, make sure that you keep the Fendi thing alive, don't confuse it with Dior, it's almost like, okay, how am I gonna juggle this? How am I gonna do this? Like it's mind spinning. I think
with the fashion industry, even though it is very based upon creativity and style, it's very much, as we said, it's a multi-billion dollar industry. We're dealing with houses where they're literally worth 20 billion dollars.
Okay.
So the idea of, okay, we had Karl Langerfeld who was literally designing for Fendi, Chanel,
it was and
Chloe, all at
his
own line.
Yeah.
All at the same
for Belmont
time.
Too.
Yes, for a short time he was at Belmont to be more to the beginning of his career. And he designed for all of these brands at the same time, simultaneously.
Crazy.
There's this idea that, and I believe it's a stakeholder thing, where stakeholders sit at the table and they're like, okay, this brand is worth 10 million today. We need to keep that going. We do not trust a young designer with this brand. We need someone that's gonna come in here and quadruple our bottom line. The only way to kind of ensure that that happens is to bring on Carl, who did the same thing for Fendi, is to bring
Chanel.
in Daniel Lee, who did the same thing for Bottega, is to bring in Kim Jones, who did the same thing for Dior. Like, you know, they're going to always lean on people that have unfortunately have proven themselves.
Yeah.
They're not going to depend on young, talented designers that are, you know, sitting in their little studio sewing their samples.
For example, Olivier Ruston, big fans of his, love the man.
Yeah.
When you look at his career, like in brief, he did an internship with Roberto Cavalli. Then he ended up working at Belmont. Worked his way up to being the assistant to the at the time creative director. I forget his name, but we'll insert a picture here with the name. You'll see. And then when you know Belmont was done with this creative director, we're done with him. They're like, you know what, Olivier, no one knows you. We know. And you're not, you know, internationally known. You're not the it person, whatever.
You are not a white male.
But you know what? We're gonna take a chance on you. And that was 10 years ago. And Belmont since then has been doing nothing but going upward. All that because a very famous and very rich house decided to take a chance, take a leap of faith, and hire this young kid. And he brought Belmont to places where most brands wish they could get to. We have the examples of brands, of houses that you know, like Belmont, and also you look at like the late Virgil, rest in peace Virgil. You know, he had Off-White, and Louis Vuitton was like, man, this guy is talented. No, we got to get him on board the LV home. We have to get him into men's fashion here. And we all saw the amazing
up to this very day, like Virgil did that. And then we have a brand like Gucci where Alessandro Michele, he was working at Gucci since 2002. So over like 20 years he had been working at Gucci, and then they bought him on as the main, you know, art director there. And we've seen what Gucci has done. Gucci is back to where it was when Tom Ford was in charge of the house. We see that when brands take a chance on people, there is a big payback.
There is.
But right now, I think brands don't have the patience to wait to see what happens. Yeah. As we both know, fashion is somewhat unforgiving in the sense when you think of a brand like Gucci and Tom Ford. Yeah. Tom Ford was designing for about 3 houses at the time. A lot of people, he was designing for YSL, Gucci, and kind of starting to develop his own line all at the same time.
And that's a lot, because you have an Italian brand, you got a French brand. Gucci owns YSL. When they bought them out, they're like, well, you're already the head designer for Gucci. You might as well just go ahead and design for YSL too. Both houses have very distinct looks.
Yes, they do.
He had to take off different hats, put on a new hat all the time. Juggling these two very huge fashion houses. Yes. Like, imagine the stress. Like, girl, there's 2 of us and we are like, whew.
Let me tell you. What you should know.
Oh my goodness.
Is that when Tom Ford decided he had enough and he left Gucci, Gucci had to go ahead and hire 4 people to do his job.
Give me a break.
So, the job that he was doing by himself for years, Gucci had to hire 4 people to do the job of 1 man, and he had bought $4 billion Gucci to $10 billion Gucci all on his own. So think about the amount of work and stress Tom Ford put out at Gucci to bring it from $4 billion to $10 billion. This is the sort of mindset that is within that fashion industry. It's cutthroat, it's a corporate thing, just like we said. Corporate. It is no different than the banking industry or the tech industry. It's like, how are we getting in the money? What,
it's all about
sunglasses? Do we need, you know?
It's all about money. When you look at the luxury market, you know, their biggest competitors are the Zaras, the Sheins, the Fashion Novas, because, you know, they're affordable, so people will buy that well over, you know, the Burberrys and the YSLs, for example. Because when you think back to even Daniel Leese, you know, he was working with Donna Karan. I believe Donna Karan was his first job as soon as he came out of school. And someone took a chance on him. Yeah. Just like how someone took a chance on Olivier, someone took a chance on Virgil. So it's just interesting how, like you were saying, it's just sad, I should say more so, that brands, they really value the money, and I get it because we have to get paid. But at the same time, it's also costing you from finding that person where you don't even have to worry about it.
The thing with fashion is it's a very old industry. As we know, some of the first industries that are documented are fashion companies, are companies where they were either trading fur, trading fabric, and because it's an old industry, it hasn't innovated a lot. No, you know, it hasn't innovated the way how, you know, medicine has innovated, or
even tech,
has innovated.
True.
So we are in a situation, you know, like Kim Jones is an example, where he's working for multiple brands at the same time.
He's working with Dior Homme, which is Dior Men's, and Women's Fendi.
Right.
Two very different identities. This poor man, I'm lucky, you're lucky if he even sleeps.
Right. And then we have brands where we've got Prada, and we got Mrs. Prada, and she's designing with a co-designer, Raf Simons, who we know from Jill Saunders to Calvin Klein to his own brand to another thing. Fashion has been staying in this
bubble.
Like, it's been in a bubble, and they're lacking innovation. For instance, where and when are we going to start seeing Black women as art directors in a French, Italian, or even a US brand? But all people of color, women in general, we don't have a lot of women that are in these fashion houses. We have Alexander McQueen, only because I believe she was the assistant.
I believe she was his assistant.
Of Alexander McQueen, and that's why she's there. Stella McCartney had to make her own line.
She had to make her own line. Well, she was working with Chloe before, and when, you know, she got enough clout, she was like, you know what, this is awesome, but I can do this for myself. So I'm going to make my own brand, sustainable brand, which she has done. Then you have Victoria Beckham. Donatella Versace.
And these are all, these women had a really good foundation to get into fashion. Victoria Beckham,
Spice Girl.
Stella McCartney, Sir Paul McCartney.
Well, that alone.
Even the amazing
and Riri, she had a beautiful, now her stuff was
actually working with LV. We saw what happened.
We'll at least say favoritism. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna say anything else. I do agree with you though, overall, that the fashion industry is just one huge bubble, and they're just gonna keep on recycling the same designers and wearing them thin. When you link up the late Alexander McQueen and his very horrific demise in 2010, you know, he was designing for himself and then he was designing for another brand.
You have to think of the pressure that is now upon designers. Things have changed a lot since the 90s when we started watching fashion shows as little kids. Designers used to have 4 seasons. Hello, there are 4 seasons. And now there are 8 seasons. These 8 seasons also include homeware, they include accessories, they include kids wear. Every brand now has to have these 3 extra categories, and in order to assure that they make the money that they need to make. So the art directors, even if one brand has 3 art directors, let's say each category has an art director, it's a lot of stress because you still all have to come together to align as to what the aesthetic is going to be and how you're going to carry the look throughout all of these categories. Even if you make slow fashion, it still has to be fast.
It's not really slow. Burnout is such a strong thing.
I think that, and this is just personal opinion, I feel that it is time for fashion to really take a look at how they run business right now. How do we make it so that the industry is welcoming of new faces and new talent? Again, if you had 5 TV networks, and the 5 TV networks only depended on 5 different journalists to deliver the news every day. Eventually these journalists are going to lose their mind, and eventually people are going to tire of the perspectives and the ideas of these only 5 journalists.
Yeah.
The only way to make it innovative is to have different voices from different backgrounds,
right,
with different experiences to make it creative.
You get a new fashion, a new person, new kid fresh that's just been interning, and now all of a sudden you give them the keys to be the creative director. They get their fresh pair of eyes. They see the good and the bad in the brand, things that maybe the brand doesn't see because, you know, they've been there for so long. But when you get a fresh pair of eyes to look at that and say, you know what, actually that never worked. I think you thought it did, but it actually didn't. Let's do this. And they turn it around, and then you as the stakeholder, you're like, oh, wait a minute, this kid was right.
Yeah, I remember, I mean, I don't remember because I was too young to remember, but,
right,
you know, the story you just told is the story of Marc Jacobs, Zach Posen. People that came in that were fresh and new, and they came and people were like, that look, yo, yes, that's a whole, yeah. There was a time when they were new and no one knew who they were, and it was the fashion that spoke, and it was the fashion that made them who they are today, and really made like just a stamp in history and in culture. We would love to know what you all think. Do you think that fashion needs to be a bit more innovative? Do you think that they're kind of stuck behind these old ways of thinking? What do you think of huge corporations owning a bunch of luxury design houses? We'd love to hear what you have to think. If you love videos on fashion news, modest styling, and lifestyle, this is the channel for you. If you haven't already, comment, like, and subscribe. Join us here on our channel every week. We'd love to have you.
Find us on TikTok. Yes, we have TikTok. Find us under the name HercastleGirls, and give us a follow there. Also give us a follow on Instagram. You can find us there under the same name, HercastleGirls.
Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.